Why, yes, I am wearing clogs, and this is a solid oak dresser. So as you can see, I've already done most of the drawers on the dresser. I have this one last one left to do, and I kind of want to walk you through how do you actually go about piston fitting the panels into the drawer slot. Now, I'm not going to be talking about the dovetailing or after it's dovetailed how to piston fit. I'll probably do another video on that at another time. But I really want to talk about a part that isn't talked about very often. That's fitting all the pieces and making them the correct dimension and size before installing them into the piece. And that's, how do you make them actually fit? Like, this is the drawer front for this last one, and it is both longer and taller than it needs to be. So I need to actually shape it to this. Now, if you are absolute perfect square, then you can just take measurements and cut the pieces to the measurement. But this isn't perfectly square. There's a little bit of out of alignment here and there, and there are so many other little things that can go into it, especially with it being made over such a long time, that some of the pieces aren't exactly where they need to be. And so, that's normal. Most dressers that the average person is going to make aren't going to have a perfectly square face. But without having slides or rollers or guides, how do you actually make them fit? So I'm going to go through all the steps of making the front, the back, and the sides the correct dimension to this particular drawer opening. And this particular drawer will not fit in these other ones. Well, it might, but it will be specifically designed for this opening. And that way, when I go into dovetailing, then it will be a lot closer, and then I can just do the final cleanup to make it fit this slot perfectly. So let's actually jump into how we do the panels of the drawer. I like to start with the side panels first. Some people like to start with the front or back, but whatever. I'll just set the panel on the ledge and then make a tick mark at the top where it needs to actually be trimmed up to. And I'll make the exact same mark on the opposite end as well. This just gives me exact locations where to put it to. In this case, both of those marks are the same distance away from this outside edge, so I can just use a marking gauge to connect the two lines. If they're not the same distance, then I would use a straight edge to connect the two lines with that. Next up, I'll put it in the vise, and then use a scrub plane or a foreplane with a very heavy camber to quickly take off the material. This is a great plane for removing a lot of material fast. Next, I'll come in with a number 4 and smooth out the marks from the foreplane, and then I will come in with a smoothing plane and take off a very clean, smooth cut on the very end, bringing it right down to the marks I made. Next, I'll just check it for square, make sure it's ready to go, and we can take it back over to the carcass and make sure it fits. I want it to be not tight or snug, but with a little bit of looseness. For me, about 1/16 of an inch or less is exactly what I'm looking for. Make it slide in and out nicely. Then next, I'm going to actually flush it up with the back of the carcass, make sure that it's right in place, and then put a couple tick marks with the knife and make sure that it is, I'm cutting exactly where I need to cut. I can take it over to the bench and then transfer those marks with a straight edge all the way around the board. And this way, when I am cutting with a saw, I'm not going to be blowing out fibers because this cut mark will actually protect the very edge of the board. I like to put it in a vise and cut vertically. Some people like to use a bench hook, some people will use a saw bench, but this is just the method I prefer to use. After that, I'll take it over to the shooting board and just clean it up, make sure that the edge is really nice and clean. I did a video recently on making one of these, and it's a fantastic tool to have on hand because it can do very quick work on cleaning up the saw marks and giving you a perfect edge. Next up, we take it back, test it, make sure it fits. Now I want to see if it fits on both sides, and in this case there is a little bit of deviation front to back in the panel, about 1/1000 of an inch or a couple thousandths of an inch. So I keep that in mind and I take the first side I've worked on over to the bench and lay it on top of the second side, and I'm going to transfer all the marks and everything over to this second board. And I'll just keep in mind that the side closest to the outside needs to be a little bit thinner on this second board. So just like I did with the first one, I cut it to the appropriate length and then plane it down and make it exactly what it needs to be right up to those marks. And then I can take this board over to the carcass, make sure it slides in and works as it is supposed to. And I just had to trim it up a little bit more to make it work exactly in that slot, as this side is slightly shorter than the other side. Only a pass or two with the plane difference. But then I make sure to mark the boards so that I know exactly which side of which drawer this board goes on, so I can separate the 40-some boards needed for these drawers. Now for the face, I'm actually going to use the marking knife flat on the underside of this carcass beam and make a couple tip marks just like I did before. But as I know that this dimension changes ever so slightly from one end to the other, I will mark it at one end and then mark it at the other. Then I can take it over to the bench, and with a straight edge I can make that mark. Now in this case I have to take off more than 1/4 inch, and I could use a scrub plane to do it, but because this is curly oak, that could get messy really fast, and I prefer to actually just cut it. So I'll set it up in the vise and cut it, just staying a little bit away from the line, making sure that it is right where it needs to be. Then I'll come into the plane and smooth it out and take it right down to that marking gauge line with the plane. Then I can bring that board over and make sure that it fits height-wise, but I still need to trim it to length. So what I'll do is set it on that shelf, slide it into place just a little bit, and then reach inside the carcass and mark off where it needs to be cut lengthwise to fit. Then bring it over the bench, cut it to length, and then run it quickly on the shooting board to make sure it's all nice and clean and brought right up to that marking gauge line. And it should slide right in. Might need a little bit of adjustment, but there you go. It should have a little bit of movement so that it is not exactly tight, but what it needs to be able to slide in and out. Next, I'll place it on top of the back panel and then transfer all of those marks. And this way I can make sure that the back panel is precisely the same size as the front panel, because the back panel still has to go through the front and go all the way to the back of the drawer bay. And in some cases the drawer bay gets a little bit smaller, and so I have to actually make the back panel a little bit smaller. But this case the back is actually a little bit larger, and so it works all the way through, and I don't have to adjust it much more. I just again have to make sure that I actually go and mark what this piece is so that I don't miss it. So there you have it. Now most people, when they show you how to make a piston fit drawer, they basically skip this step because they make the assumption that everything is square. And I say never make the assumption that everything is square. Always make the assumption that things aren't square. And that way you can make them fit to what is reality. Because in all honesty, there is no such thing as perfection. And I really wish people would stop completely chasing perfection and start chasing functionality in a realistic form. Now, if you look at this, you're going to say that this is square. If you even come in with this square and test a few joints, you're going to probably say it's square. But in reality, it's slightly out. And everything has a slight difference, whether it's just a half a degree or a 32nd of an inch one place or another. There's slight imperfections in this. And I really want you to be able to work with reality as opposed to working with what you think it should be. And that being said, if you notice, I didn't use an actual tape measure in this at all. I made no measurements and actually had no numbers of how long things should be and where marks should be. I just used the reality. So I put pieces up against what I wanted them to fit, and I made a line and then cut to that line. And once you start to work with what is possible, then everything kind of fits together. So I hope you've enjoyed this build. I may end up doing a slightly longer format when I actually get into the dovetails, but we'll do that in a future video. So let me know if you'd like to see it. If you did like this video, please hit like and go ahead and smash that subscribe button. I want to say an incredible thank you to the patrons on Patreon. You guys are the reason why this content is still coming out. And if you'd like to be a part of that, you can find out more in the link for Patreon right over here. If you did like this video, feel free to check out one of my others. You might find something you like there. And until next time, have a wonderful day.